Valorant in the COVID times was the first 5v5 tactical shooter that I ever played. It was the first tactical esports shooter that I followed, but this loyalty badge proves that I ain't on one side of this bifurcation that happened in the community, that happened in the scene since the launch of Valorant back in 2020. Since then, many of players have moved from the C side to the V side and stayed, some switched and then returned back, and some in the community, the so-called CS loyalists who have even not tried the Valorant till date. But I always dreamed of an utopia in which the two factions of this FPS community stayed and thrived together. And from this same desire of an utopia, an idea came in my mind. What knives these Valorant agents would wield if they were in Counter-Strike. Valorant to this date has around 28 agents released, but today we are going to talk about the first few that were released in the beta of the game. So without further ado, let's start our video. First agent that we have to talk about is Brimstone. He's the leader, the commander by authority, and the controller by role. He's the most senior among the agents, and he had a history of being an ex-firefighter and an ex-soldier before he joined the Valorant protocol. For Brimstone, if he was in Counter-Strike, I think he would choose a knife which was more functional and more dominating in nature. And due to the ring that helps it to be attached to a gun muzzle, I think Brimstone would choose a classic M9 bayonet as his companion. The scientist Viper. He has been described as a villainous chemist who has a personality of being a revengeful savage, and as her name itself is derived from a deadly fanged beast, choosing a knife for her was not a brainstorming search for me. I think an emerald stiletto would perfectly fit her loadout and attire, and also her persona. 3. Comes our Moroccan secretive information. Cypher has small trips and small cages and small devices, and his weird Neuralink hat that makes him more weird to look at when he removes it. I think something pocket-sized and small, foldable knife kind of thing would perfectly fit him. And the first thing that came into my mind is Cypher with a Swiss knife. That would have been perfect. But since Swiss knife is not in the game files, as I personally would have loved to wield a tiger tooth Swiss knife, I think a flip knife or a Navaja knife, that too in a case hardened finish, would perfectly match his white and blue attire and his cheeky personality. Also, it would have helped him to tinker with all those small gadgets. Now at number 4 comes our Russian initiator, Sova, the strategist. What everybody knows about him is that Sova is an archer and also very humble as a person. But the one thing that I found while researching about Sova, that he has a past of being a hunter. And most of you will tell me that I skipped the effort and just typecasted Sova's knife choice because of him being hunter. But for our humble hunter, a huntsman knife, for me, I think it would be a perfect choice. And that too in a blue steel finish. Why blue steel? Because while researching I found out blue steel is something that makes the knife's edge more tough and resistant to wear. And I think an hunter out in the fields, out in the jungles, choosing a blue steel huntsman knife would be perfect. Now at number 5 comes Raze, our loud engineer. Described to be playful and impulsive and spontaneous, she is described to be a one-woman party. And somebody with this personality and being a funky Brazilian, that too in a good way, I think the best knife for her would be a butterfly. And that too in an autotronic butterfly. Honestly, I could easily imagine a blabbering Raze flipping her autotronic butterfly in CS2. Next in the list comes another duelist. Coming from the streets of London, our fiery Phoenix. His nature and personality among all duelists exactly resembles what I think a duelist should be. Rash, impulsive, and confident, and sometimes overconfident. And all those pop culture references of knife and British roadman, I think a machete would perfectly fit Phoenix. But since machete is not in the game files, I think a kukri or a Bowie knife would be a better choice for our British guy. And for the sarcasm that Phoenix has, I think a Piss Gem Bowie would perfectly fit his sarcasm and personality. Now moving on from our two impulsive agents comes our calm, composed Chinese monk, the Sage. He is the healer of the group. Though her personality being a monk, wielding a knife would not fit it, but the requirement of the trade will make her to choose one. And I think just for the utility purpose, she would choose something basic that will serve the purpose, as her personality is also described to be a stronghold and a helper for the teammates. Also not missing the fact, the famous voice line that you must have heard, herself claiming to be shield and a sword. This duality in her nature would make a fire and ice classic knife perfectly fit her personality. But as fire and ice is not in the game files for classic knife, I think a bayonet with fire and ice pattern would be something Sage might be. The next agent that we want to talk about is our Swedish criminal. I'm not a type of guy who typecasts people, but This loudmouth would definitely be acquainted with knives based on his past criminal history, and he must definitely be aware of how to use one. And I feel a small concealable navaja would be the perfect choice for Breach. A dainty old companion of a knife, like a rust coat navaja, would perfectly fit his on and off vacations in jail. His knife would perfectly line up with his history of a knife that he would not have been able to take care of and since got rusted, but it's too close for him to just throw it. Second last in the list would be Jett, the Korean chef. This cool duelist would have wielded kunai, but since it's not in the game yet, there was another option that came into my mind, and I think skeleton knife, that too a blue gem skeleton knife, would perfectly fit Jett. As in Valorant itself, there's a Valorant Go knife, a skeleton knife that has Jett imprinted on it, and it's one of my favorite knives. Lastly, for our list of agents comes our mysterious Omen, phantom who loves to net. While choosing a knife for him, I was in dilemma, because what knife do you give a person who you know nothing about? You don't know anything about his personality. But recently, according to the lore videos of Valorant, the fact that has been clear that he had a past of being an assassin. And then it came to my mind, could make an exception for this phantom. And I think the leaked twin blade in the CS game files would perfectly fit the Omen. That too in Gamma Doppler, a Sapphire. Imagine a deadly assassin who wields twin blade. It would be a perfect tool of mischief. With this, we end our video talking about what CS knives would these Valorant agents would wield if they were in Counter-Strike. If you have any advice on what changes would you have been made for your list, comment down below. If you like these type of videos, please subscribe and peace.